It's never easy to stand against all odds. Though trials come, I'm not afraid, no. So if it takes all day, I'll still wait anyway. A change will come, a change will come. It's never easy to stand against all odds. We've waited long, but we're still strong. So if it takes all day, I'll still wait anyway. A change will come. A change will come.
It's never easy to stand against all odds. We've waited long, but we're still strong. So if it takes all day, I'll still wait anyway. A change will come. 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 A change will come.
one evening in the room, we started talking. That something should be done. Something should be done. But how can you fight a system?
First thing we had to learn was to be nonviolent. Very difficult. But we embraced concepts like nonviolence and use it to avail.
There were some things that bothered me as a young boy about this democracy of ours that was not real to a lot of people.
We even went to the library and checked on some of the statutes in the North Carolina law book about this. And we realized that we wasn't breaking no law. Civil disobedience, that was all. In fact, the police, when they came down, they didn't know what to do. They just stood there, scared. I was.
I'm glad, thank God, that we were protected from all danger, but we were dealing with a psychological war. It wasn't how big we was, how great we were committed to a cause.
We had an idea of the risks that we were pursuing. And as Frank said often, Frank McCain, that we weren't sure how we would leave that Woolworth store February 1st. We might leave in a pine box. We might leave upright as soldiers. But we believed very strongly in what we were doing.
And through a lot of hard work, a lot of danger, and at a human price and sacrifice, and I don't bemoan that, and I seek no sympathy for it. We changed the course of history relative to civil rights in this country.
We came to campus, and some students heard what we had done, so we formed what is called the Student Executive Committee for Justice. That name came from a man named Ralph Johns. Joseph had this idea in his mind before he met Ralph Johns. Then Joseph brought to us a book by Langston Hughes called A Pictorial History of the American Negro. This book, written by Langston Hughes, guess what his birthday is? February 1, he wrote the book that Joseph brought to us. So that's the beginning of some things what we call enlightenment that happened to me over the last 50 years.
We were pleasantly surprised. We knew we were going to win in the long term because we weren't going to give up until we'd won. Woolworths decided that what they needed to do was integrate all their stores throughout the country. And they didn't do it because somebody paid them money. They gave, and they gave freely, and it was not it was a we type of thing. It wasn't about me. We couldn't have possibly have known all the positive repercussions from sitting in at a lunch counter, not knowing fully the impact that it would have. We knew that we were fortunate to have some bright people in our midst. We did the right things. My counsel would be, carry yourself with dignity. Respect mankind.
If we don't communicate with each other, there's no progress. We must go forward together.
If there's something that you want to do and in your heart, you know that it needs to be changed, modified, or turned upside down, go ahead and do it. Don't follow your head. Don't follow your heart. Follow your gut. But don't wait for anybody. Because, first of all, they won't come.
Good morning, everyone. Let's make it louder. I know it's early. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome to the 64th Sit-In Anniversary Celebration. My name is Jasmine Amenion-Pung. I serve as president of the Student Government Association. It is my pleasure to be here today, just as it is our pleasure to celebrate, commemorate, and honor the A&T Four for their intentional and historic acts of courage on February 1, 1960. electrifying and igniting the civil rights sit-in movement by staging a sit-in at the downtown Greensboro Woolworth's lunch counter. As a student, I can only imagine the exhaustive range of emotions those 4 freshman students experienced. A prevailing tug to do something, fear of doing something while also fearful of doing nothing, anxiety yet exhilaration. It had to be a stressful time. Sitting down at an all-whites lunch counter, refusing to leave, subjecting themselves to ridicule and violence, the A&T Four ignited a tremendous movement, giving an amplified voice to millions of Black Americans who were degraded and dehumanized daily, legally barred from simply sitting at a lunch counter. Ezell Blair Jr., Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, and David Richmond empowered and inspired many others to band together and demand better. I'm sure their determination and actions were already in the hearts and minds of their family, friends, and certainly the Black community at large. But they took that leap, exposing the world to the degradation and discrimination that prevailed across the nation. While this event reminds us of the struggles of our forefathers, it serves a greater purpose to honor them for their sacrifices while furthering their call to demand change in spaces that are yet to be equalized. Without their bravery amid hatred and vitriol spewed on every side, and without them weighing freedom over imaginable fear, our lives could be vastly different. Today, we simply salute them. It has been 64 years. Many things have changed, but one remains true. We will continue their movement in whatever spaces are necessary. We will fearlessly follow their pursuit of justice and equality. This year's theme, The Gathering, Strength in Our Unity, is a nod to the galvanizing and coalescing effect of the sit-in movement. In essence, we do it better together. When we unify, our impact multiplies and initiates change. I'm gonna say it again. When we unify, our impact multiplies and initiates change. This is not the time to stop or slow down. We're just getting started. We are determined to move forth in the spirit of the A&T Four. Again, thank you for joining us this morning. We will follow the program as printed. Zakiah Jones Walker, Bennett College SGA president, will bring us the occasion, followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing, led by the North Carolina A&T Gospel Choir. A moment of reflection will be led by Olivia Johnson, Dudley High School SGA president. Thereafter, Brandon Falk, a sophomore and February 1 scholar, will recognize our special guest. Finally, Amira Poindexter, a junior and February 1 scholar, will introduce our guest panelist. Zakiah, I will turn it over to you and we will follow the program. Thank you.
Good morning. On this day, 64 years ago, Ezell Blair Jr., Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, and David Richmond left Scott Hall and walked 1 mile to F.W. Woolworth to sit down at a segregated lunch counter. Though they were denied service, those young men refused to give up their seats and stayed until the store closed, only to return the following days with more students from North Carolina A&T, Bennett College for Women, and Dudley High School. Throughout the month of February in 1960, similar protests spread to at least 250 major United States towns and cities. Their decision to take a stand by sitting down sparked the idea to form the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and inspired the Freedom Rides in 1961, all of which led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended segregation in public places, banned employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Today, we honor the A&T Four for their courage to be agents of change in the face of adversity. Please stand as the North Carolina A&T Gospel Choir leads us in Lift Every Voice and Sing. Thank you. in honor of the late David Richmond and Franklin McCain, as well as the lives and legacies of their fellow freedom fighters and change agents, we will take a moment to reflect on their lives and the contributions to the national sit-in movement. Let us take a moment. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our special guests in the audience. When I call your name, please stand. Members of the Board of Trustees, Chair Kimberly Gatling, Chancellor Harold L. Martin, Sr., Judge Paul Jones, Gina Laughlin, First Lady Davita Martin, James Barnhill, family and friends, Mr. and Miss North Carolina A&T State University and Royal Court, Frank McCain, family and friends, David Richmond, family and friends, Retired General Joseph McNeil, family and friends, members of the Chancellor's Cabinet, members of the Dean's Council, university administrators, former members of the Board of Trustees, current and former members of the Board of Visitors, elected officials, persons seeking elected office, community leaders and partners, Guilford County Schools Superintendent Whitney Oakley, Guilford County Schools Board of Education, members and administrators, former human rights medalists, elected student leaders, February 1 scholars, Bennett College SGA E-Board, and finally, all North Carolina A&T students. Thank you.
Good morning. We're excited for the next portion of the program to fully discuss and delve into our theme of strength and unity. It is my pleasure to present our outstanding group of guest panelists, including Dr. Oliver Thomas, Director of External Affairs, Ms. Crystal Boyce, Interim Associate Vice Chancellor for Alumni Relations, and Kennedy Lightly, Senior Political Science student. Unfortunately, Dr. Jelani Favors, Henry E. Fry, Distinguished Professor of History and Political Science, will not be able to join us. Tiffany Seawright, University Director of Leadership and Engagement, will serve as our moderator. Ms. Seawright, I will now turn it over to you.
Wow. Thank you, Amira. It's my pleasure to be here today and to facilitate this gathering of my friends. Come on, friends. But before we get started, and as they get seated on the stage, I'd like for you to draw your attention to the screens and watch a short video.
In the 1950s, in the shadow of segregation, blacks and whites lived separate lives, separate schools, neighborhoods, restaurants.
What was so different about us that would cause us to be so unattractive that people would just close the doors?
And just like today, some people thought it was time for change.
There comes a time when you have to stand up.
For Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, and their two college dorm mates, that time was February 1st, 1960, the day they walked into a Greensboro Woolworths and sat down at the segregated lunch counter.
If I were lucky, I would be carted off to jail for a long, long time.
If you were lucky.
If I were lucky. And if I were not so lucky, then I would be going back to my campus in a pine box.
It was an act of defiance that shocked everyone.
The waitress saw us, I think, immediately when we sat. But she was so stunned.
Remember exactly what she said to you?
You boys can't be served. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble.
How would you describe the way you were feeling? Were you nervous, scared, exhilarated?
I certainly wasn't afraid. And I wasn't afraid because I was too angry to be afraid.
That day, a movement began.
We're not going to leave until you serve us. So we sat there. And
Woolworths closed early, but the young men returned each day after that. They were soon joined by thousands of supporters and the Ku Klux Klan.
What was the worst thing anybody said to you, anybody did to you?
they used every negative word, a curse word, nigger go back to Africa.
But there was one woman both say they will never forget.
An elderly white woman, probably in her, I'd say, 70s or 80s.
She whispered in a calm voice, "Boys, I am so proud of you."
It was the first sustained sit-in of the civil rights era. Woolworths desegregated 6 months later. The Greensboro Four had inspired sit-ins in 78 cities across the South and motivated other college students to become freedom riders, which is why that lunch counter ended up here at the Smithsonian.
I'd only sat on a dumb stool. I hadn't even been served. But I had a different feeling altogether.
A feeling that hasn't gone away as the nation prepares to inaugurate its first African-American president.
I think I'm part of that continuum. And without that continuum, I'm not so sure that we would have an African-American president-elect.
And let's not forget the other two members of the Greensboro Four. Ezell Blair now works with the disabled in New Bedford, Massachusetts. David Richmond died of lung cancer in 1990. He was 49 years old.
Wow. Check. All right, there you go. Wow. Being able to watch that video is just so inspiring. And it just reminds me how important conversations are. The inspiration to start a movement can come from a conversation like this, which is why I'm so excited to be here today on this panel and have this discussion with you all. So bringing me into my first question for you all. What does the February 1 celebration mean for each of you, and why is this an opportune time to discuss the preservation of our democracy?
You know, it makes it, thank you, Kennedy, it makes it a great day to be an Aggie. When you think about, you know, when I first saw the A&T Four statue as a student in 2003, when I came here, it was amazing to see the history that was at A&T and what the freshmen did, just as freshmen, how they impacted democracy when they weren't truly a part of democracy, but made a stand. So it was great to be a part of that legacy and know that they took a stand when others wouldn't.
And thank you for that question, Kennedy. And just this gathering, this breakfast, for all of us to be able to be here, different generations, students, graduates of A&T, members of the community, elected officials, to be able to be here as a part of their legacy, a part of the gathering. And as we engage in democratic practices, right, what do we value in democracy? What do we value about community? Do we value humanity? Do we value participation in the process? And if we value these things, then as we look to the A&T Four to continue to help us with these conversations, we also have to value that the dialogue has to be intense, it needs to be critical, it doesn't need to be surface, and the perspectives of so many cannot be easily dismissed if we're actually going to have change, positive, substantive change. The dialogue has to be deep, has to be critical, and for folks like ourselves who represent different groups, but also Crystal and I, as an example, being alum of this university, what does it look like for us to continue the legacy of the A&T Four and the work we do every day is the question that I ask myself.
Absolutely. So what do you think should be the primary objectives of the gathering to ensure it serves as a catalyst for change and democracy preservation?
I think when coming together, it's really important that you have a clear and succinct plan. When you have a lot of leaders in a space, it can be easy to hear a lot of amazing ideas, but you want to make sure that you have a plan of action that you're carrying out. And that's just really important. That should be your primary objective when gathering together.
Well, I think also you have to be strategic. Strategic in bringing folks to the table that have something to say, that are not just being performative in this new culture that we have, this clout culture that we have, that is not performative, that is genuine, that is real. We have to bring folks to the table that won't change, right? And not just talk about it, but actually the action behind change. And so if they're not ready to take action and we're just gonna keep having conversations, then what's the point in the gathering? We gotta be able to move after the gathering.
One of my experiences in higher education was to have had the pleasure of teaching students and to teach African American history in particular. As you all think about these gatherings year over year and the legacy of the A&T Four, what's the relevance of the history when we think about students today, we think about our activity today? How do we look at historical events and say there's opportunity for us to learn from the context then that applies to our context now?
I would say looking at it as a student, an A&T student specifically, looking at our A&T Four I think about what we say all the time, Aggie Pride, achieving great goals in everything, producing renowned individuals dedicated to excellence. And that's exactly what the A&T Four exemplified in their work. So as a student in our Student Social Action Coalition, it lays the groundwork for everything that we do. As Aggie activists, as I've heard it said, we have a huge legacy to fulfill, so it lays our groundwork in all the work that we do. And then looking at other historical movements at Shaw University, Ella Baker, what they were able to accomplish with SNCC, it serves as motivation and inspiration to keep going. In this work, sometimes it can get tiring and it can get hard, but they were young just like us. The A&T Four were freshmen, and it just serves as our motivation to keep going.
The A&T Four inspired me, and seeing our students today and the great things that they're doing, how they're affecting change. You know, if we see something that needs to be changed, if we remain silent, we become conspirators of the injustice. And so why should I remain silent when I know something is wrong and something's not right? It's my duty here working at this institution, being a proud alumna of this institution, to encourage the students to find their voice, like those administrators like Dr. Rashid and others encourage me to do as a student. So it's my duty to encourage them to not remain silent when they see something is wrong and to affect that change in our local community and abroad.
That's good. I totally agree, Crystal. Dr. Thomas, the state of our democracy. We are so challenged right now. I don't know if we're going forwards and backwards at the same time, right? Talk to us about those specific challenges that are plaguing our community locally and globally. Help our students, help our community see what's right in front of them that so many are trying to hide in layers and layers of bills and policies and words that folks don't even understand. Tell us what's going on. Help us.
So one of the biggest pieces around democracy that you all know this in passing, but you have to write it down. Democracy is a process. Democracy doesn't end what some policies have been put in place. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act did not end the process of democracy, because democracy is about the people. And the people struggle together because people are complex. People are not black and white, and you can put them in a box, you give them a number, you set them about, and then you think you can control it because you're trying to control a human being. So democracy as a process requires participation. Anti-intellectualism is one of the issues we have with democracy in the US right now. What I mean by anti-intellectualism is I don't mean you need to be educated with and degreed in order to be an intellectual. What I mean is you actually have to pay attention, you have to read, you have to engage in conversation, you have to know what's happening in your community, and you have to know it intimately. My grandparents did not move beyond a high school education, and my grandparents were some of the most educated intellectual people I've ever known because they understood what was happening in the community and they understood how to address it. Anti-intellectualism is an issue. Apathy, we've talked about apathy, folks feeling like not able to participate, don't know where to start, don't know what issue to address. It's not just apathy, though. It's also hopelessness. We, as a community, as individuals, are experiencing hopelessness whether or not we give language to it. That when you see young people dying on the TV, on the news, you see persons not being treated fairly, you see women having to still struggle to have their rights to their own bodies, when you see young people feeling like they don't have a voice in community or they're not being listened to, we're seeing apathy and we're also seeing hopelessness at the same time. And again, if we are centering humanity, we're centering the gathering, right? It reinvigorates our hope to know that we do this together, that we are not by ourselves, black and brown, men and women, white, and children and teenagers and adults. Anti-intellectualism, apathy, hopelessness we are encountering, policies, and the lack of knowledge of how policies shape the present. What has happened between the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act today, where policymakers did not know the history well or did not care to know the history well, whatever that is, we have to be people who read policies. We have to slow down to read them. We have to process them. We have to be engaged in public policy, engaged with elected officials. We need to ask as many questions of elected officials before and after they are in the seat, because they cannot keep up with everything. That's just a true statement. They can't. There are too many policies, there are too many issues, and so they need people from the community who are thoughtful, who are critical, who are willing to engage them in conversation and help them shape the public policies that will benefit all of the community and not just a select few, right? But that takes time. It takes patience. Again, democracy is a process. What it also means is that we have to look at our schedules and decide, where am I too busy? Because busy schedules keep us from doing the slow, critical work of engaging in democracy.
And there's much work to be done. When we think about where we are now in 2024, in 1960, they didn't have the technology that we have now. In 2003, Facebook was starting up. And I remember we had to put out information about not to put out too much, for students not to list the residence hall you were living in because they didn't know and weren't educated about technology. But I think about the technology that Kennedy and her peers have at their fingertips now. So in this digital age, how can we utilize technology to amplify the message and engage a broader audience?
I think with social media, it can be a little challenging because social media can be a really good thing if used properly, but can also be a really bad thing. We've already seen, with the use of AI, we've already seen images and videos be put out there that were not real, but they looked very real. So it's really important that we do our own research on what's going on and then take it a step further and use our platform to create some good content and put out there. TikTok has surpassed Google as the #1 search engine. So a lot of people are going to be going to TikTok looking for their information, especially this election cycle. So we use TikTok to make content, to make dances, do all the trends and some other funny stuff. But let's also get on TikTok and put out some content that's creating the correct and positive narrative about what's going on.
That's good, Kennedy. I can co-sign on y'all in this TikTok, because in the office, every day they're putting another TikTok together. So I definitely can agree with that. I think it's going to be truly a tool that's going to bridge the gap between our generations, bridge the gap between our populations, right? And just want to talk to you, Crystal, for a little while. As an alumna of North Carolina A&T State University and interim associate vice chancellor for alumni engagement, we are so lucky to have you on staff. So lucky, so lucky. Students don't realize the work that you are doing with the alumni in bridging the gap between their community right here on campus and the community outside of these four walls of the institution. Talk to us about how we can better bridge that gap. What are some strategies that we need to consider in making sure that when folks leave to go into this greater world, this greater society, that we're still so connected to the A&T Four, to the roots right here on campus?
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here and serve. I think it's important for all alumni to remember where we come from. It's in our DNA, right? From the first graduating class in 1899, with the theme No Steps Backwards to 1960 and the A&T Four. Our students have protested, they have stood for the injustices, they have been on the picket lines, they have been advocating for gerrymandering, and everything in between. From where it started to where it is now, Aggies have been a part of it. So it's important for Aggies as alumni to know our history. It's important that we educate our students on our history. We bleed blue and gold. It's a part of our DNA. We talked about assemble and take over is what A&T means. And so it's important that we understand the issues as they exist now. We know many times history has repeated itself. I love going to the archives and seeing what happened before I came here and learning about the strategies that they had in 1960, the strategies they had in 1968, what they were doing when people came on our campus and tried to take over, but our students stood, and they still stand today. So alumni, we are responsible for educating our students and our community on what A&T is, what our greatness has been, what it is now, and how we're growing. If we don't tell our own story, no one else will. So we're responsible for doing that and bringing our students along, bringing our high school students along and educating them on the importance of knowing their history and not erasing it. We have to go back to the grandmothers talking and having conversations on the porch and doing it and meeting them where they are. If it's on TikTok, we need to learn TikTok. These students can teach us. We have to meet them where they are, but we have to tell our stories and not stop telling our stories.
Ooh, Crystal. I don't know if they called it here at the gathering. They said, so that we can stand. That's deep, sis. That's deep. Oliver, I saw something on your mind. What's going on over there?
Well, you know, I would say our generation, so Crystal and Tiffany and I are in the same generation, and there was something that we learned or were taught that each one reach one, each one teach one. When you think about that, what are the strategies for teaching our current students civic engagement and how to engage not only with their community on campus, but how do they engage with the community outside of campus?
Really, if I had the answer for that, y'all could pay me $1 million and students could run this institution, honey. So I really think that the gap that has not been filled is the education gap. And I don't mean here at A&T, because academia here is amazing, right? But what about the knowledge about what is going on, the issues in our community? How can we fill in the education gap about policies that are keeping us, hindering our students from being able to move? Our students, while this is the information age, and they can find any and everything through technology, they don't even know what they don't know. They don't even know what to look for. And for those of us who have been there, we have been on campus and we have marched and we have protested and we have questioned. That's the piece. We're questioning the wrong stuff, right? So our students are questioning the wrong thing. Yeah, we could have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but outside of these four walls, where's the change happening? How are they going to show up as change agents if they don't even know what the changes are that need to be made, right? So I think the education piece, we have to break down some stuff. When I read a bill, I'm just going to keep it honest with you, 14, 16 pages of words that I don't even understand, right? And A&T worked me about 70 hours a week. How am I going to really break that down for students, right? That's what we got to do. You said we have to slow down, right? That's what we got to do. If we got to slow down, then that's what we need to do for our students. We have to prepare them to be those knowledge seekers. We have to prepare them to be those action makers. We have to prepare them to go out here and lead the way for the next generation. Because if we stay where we are right now, if we continue on this road, this is going to be a long, hard road for those behind us, right? So we have to make sure that we are connecting them to the community, that we are taking them to city council meetings, that we are taking them to Board of Elections, that we are taking them to county commissioner meetings, zoning and planning, that we are out there with them, showing them that you too can show up in these spaces, and these spaces aren't intimidating. All you gotta do is ask questions. If it don't feel right in your gut, ask questions. If it don't feel right on your spirit, question it. You deserve the answers, right? We have to hold people accountable. If you don't understand, make me understand. Make it plain for me, right? Our students need to show up in these spaces asking questions. I actually work with the Student Social Action Coalition. It's new this past fall. We created that, and the conversations that are in that space just amaze me. That we do have students that have question marks, but they're afraid to ask the questions, right? Why are they afraid? Why do we make these spaces so intimidating? Maybe Crystal needs to take a group of students to Board of Elections. Maybe C-Wright needs to take a group of students to City Council. Maybe Oliver needs to take a bunch of students to zoning and planning and explain what this means in everyday life. How do we make this plain for them? How does this affect your everyday walk in these neighborhoods? We have to make them realize that where we sit right now, where this institution sits, this is our home. And if this is our home, then that means the surrounding neighborhoods are our home. This is our neighborhood. So for folks that don't have all of the book knowledge about what's going on and how to progress a little differently, how do we stand up for our neighborhoods, for our homes? How do we ask the questions, advocate when folks can't advocate for themselves? How do we make things plain for the community? Because when you look, if they step outside these four walls and they walk into the community, we go across the street in Osei. We cross the street, right? And when we have conversations, we have to make it plain for folks. If it's difficult for me with the degrees I have, I know that it's difficult for my grandma that's sitting across the street. I know that it's difficult for my auntie that just got off work, working 12 hours a day. I know that it is difficult for the high school students that have never been exposed to anything. So how do we bridge that gap? We gotta start here, because knowledge is not just in the classroom, right? We can't let these issues drag us along. We need to be in front of the issues and teach our students to be in front of the issues, because that's what the A&T Four did.
Listening to you reminds me of what we all have to practice, and that is especially those of us who have graduated, no longer current students. We have all kinds of matters that we need to think through, and some of our experiences have shaped us a way to where we try to protect ourselves. We've been in leadership roles and positions, and people have told us what they thought was wrong. They never did say what was right, and sometimes they just didn't say a simple thank you. And so for all of us, though, there is, right, a level of transparency. If we're going to be the gathering, if we're going to be community, if we're going to have unity, there has to be level of transparency. There has to be level of, moreover, vulnerability. Are we willing to be vulnerable with each other to say what you just said, C-Wright? I've read the bill. It's 15, 16 pages, and I think I maybe understood the first paragraph, the opening paragraph, right? Being vulnerable and transparent with each other to say that we educate each other through the process, right? And therein lies participatory democracy, right? That when we come together in this gathering even, if there's something we are discussing at the table and folks have different perspectives, who at the table is willing to be vulnerable and say, you know, I don't know what you all are actually talking about. I don't know the policy that you're addressing, but I do have questions. Does the policy positively impact the community or not? Does the policy positively impact humanity or not, right? Let's start with those simple, direct questions, and sometimes those questions will slow people down long enough for them to even listen to their own perspective. Or one of my favorite questions in conversations that are heated is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you holding on to that you don't want somebody to take from you? Because what I hear is fear. I don't actually hear dialogue. I don't hear vulnerability. I don't hear transparency. What I hear is fear. What is it that you are afraid of?
Wow. Thank you for that, both C. Wright and Dr. Thomas. Education is such a critical piece to this puzzle, and we have to think about it. And so my question for you, Dr. Thomas, is how can education be used across the board to empower individuals to be actively engaged in civic engagement? And how can leadership in civic engagement be instilled into our curriculum so that our students feel a sense of responsibility?
Great question, Kennedy. And it's a heavy and deep question as well. Education is lifelong. So it's not just about what can you memorize in order to complete the test, but education is lifelong. And at the university for students, and when it comes to your African American history class or your political science class and civic engagement, it is looking at the people who wrote the text and ask how did they decide that this was important to talk about, right? When I read a book, I actually research the author before I start reading the book that I'm reading, because I want to know the perspective of the person who's actually writing. With faculty, students have the opportunity to ask faculty, so how did you decide to do this and why? Civics, again, is about people, and it's about how we engage with one another. And so in the classroom, even in an engineering class, of course, mechanical engineering, the ways in which we develop systems say something about how we interact or do not interact with people. So every single element of the class and the classroom and campus life, in my opinion, is education is happening. And so in the classroom, students, faculty have to know that you can participate in civic education in an engineering class, in an English class, in a political science class. You can participate in civic education in community service and the Office of Leadership and Civic Engagement, because civics is about people creating culture, creating policies, and acting, hopefully, according to the social contract. We don't often talk about some of those key pieces around civics anymore. What is the social contract? Do we still have a social contract? These days, I don't always think we have a social contract anymore, right? The ways in which people want to engage with each other. And so all of those pieces are educational to me. And civics can be seen and done in every single classroom. When we think about it, when Tiffany Seawright and I think about this with regard to students, we think about it in terms of those first classes that students take, general ed classes, so working with faculty to at least have a module around civic engagement, what civic engagement is, what does it encompass. Not only that, a module that the student might engage with themselves, new student orientation, and have students know the Office of Leadership and Civic Engagement, to know what External Affairs does with engaging with the community as well and community engagement. So those are two concrete ways that we currently do the work, but yes.
I would like to just piggyback off of that I would even challenge that to get folks, students in particular, even interested in having conversation around issues is, I'm a strong believer, and we've had this conversation many times, that it will take folks from every field to address an issue. So if it is child literacy, things going on with child literacy, it can't just be educators at the table. It's got to be different majors. It's got to be IT majors at the table. It's got to be nutrition majors at the table, because we know the connection in nutrition and students that can't read. There's so much research. It's got to be different folks at the table. And so if we're going to put different folks at the table, they need to be able to come to the table with knowledge that can impact the issue, right? And so I would even challenge in our classrooms that we start talking about policies that affect individual majors. If we have more conversations about that, it'll give that aha moment for our students. It'll put that question mark in their gut that says, wait a minute, is that right? Do I need to get in a position in this field where I change this policy, change this dynamic? I think that if we can do that, if we can at least start the conversation in the majors, in different classes, if every class offered in North Carolina A&T State University introduced at least 2 policies in the major that affect what's going on outside in the world, I think that would be the start of a conversation, the start of that gut that says, I need to be about change. I need to be about some work. I need to do more than just go and make this $200,000 when I leave and get my first job, because that's what they're paying them now, y'all, when I came through. But when they sit in a position where they can make $200,000 in their first job, what is that? When they're sitting at the table and they hear about different things, if an engineering major is hearing about a road that is about to go through, being planned to take up a neighborhood, and we're gonna bulldoze this neighborhood, get these folks out of this. There's gotta be something in that gut that says, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. What knowledge can I bring to this table to say, something ain't right about this? Mm-hmm. Conversations need to be had. Mm-hmm. Who are we talking to? Mm-hmm. There's gotta be people at the table that can have a feeling of passion, right? And compassion. Mm-hmm. When we don't have the compassion, we lose sight of what all of this even means. Mm-hmm. And then that's when we get in these positions and we start living our lives, and then something happens and it just hits home, right? How do we get in front of it before it hits home? That's what we need to start doing here at A&T. We need to start having those conversations so that when it hit home, we already have the answer. We already ahead of that. Yep. We know what to do.
Yep. And see, right, and to that point, that's where we can charge alumni to engage, those that are experts in those areas.
Absolutely. That
our students are not. Our alumni, 70,000 plus, are experts in many, many areas. So when we need those experts, that's where our alumni can step in and help.
That's beautiful, beautiful. Well, as we wrap up this gathering, I think that we've talked about a lot here. We've discussed a lot, but now it's time for us to put these words to action, put our feet on the ground, get moving, right? As we close out this conversation and we transition into the mindset of continued conversation, what strategy, one thing from each of you, do you feel like we need to make sure is integrated here in our A&T community and greater community? Because again, our community is the community around us as well. So what is it that we need to do to keep the momentum of this conversation, keep it in the momentum of pushing towards action? And I'll start with you, Kennedy.
I think it's important that everyone gets involved, everyone in this room. A lot of people think that maybe they don't know how to get involved with this work, but that's simply not the case. Some people think, oh, I don't know how to organize a rally, I don't know how to organize a meeting, but you don't have to do that. You can make flyers, and that's perfect. We need somebody to make the flyers, that way people can come to the meeting, right? So I think it's really important that everyone plays into their strengths and use their strengths for the greater good of this work and get involved.
There's a role for everyone. And so I think about when you ask that question and you want one thing, that's difficult. I think about Warren T. Gibbs when he said we teach students how to think, not what to think. And the one thing I would say is everyone needs to vote in every election, locally and nationally. And we need to encourage our students while they're here. This is their home while they're here. The things that happen and affect them on a daily basis are impacted by those elected officials in our local area. So not just the national elections, but local elections as well. And we have to do it. We have to lead by example, and we have to encourage our students to do the same.
Make no assumptions. Make no assumptions about the person sitting to your left or your right. Make no assumptions that you all think the same, you have the same perspective, politically, philosophically, theologically, or otherwise. Make no assumptions. Begin from a point of curiosity so that we can have the dialogues. Make no assumptions. Begin from a point of curiosity so that we can have the dialogues, and be willing to push beyond your own fears and your own philosophies in order to have the dialogue, to listen to someone else's perspective, to listen to your own perspective again, so that when we have the answers will be one that happen through dialogue, and we're not forcing onto somebody else our own perspective.
I truly appreciate you all for having this gathering with me today. Crystal, you touched on something that this is a critical year, both for our state and our nation. We have to get out the vote. We have to get out the vote. And I challenge everyone in here. A few years ago, we did a Touch 5 campaign. And it was, we asked the alumni to find a current student, encourage them to vote. Find someone that was in your class, encourage them to vote. Find someone that wants to come to A&T, encourage them to vote. Encourage someone to vote that's in your circle. So we did 5, right? If everyone in here can impact 5 other people to get out the vote, and then charge them to touch 5, it's a ripple effect. If we don't show up, we will get shut down. Oppression and suppression is real. And we are feeling it today. And for some of us, we don't even know how we're feeling it. We have to show up. We have to show up for A&T. We have to show up for our community, for East Greensboro. We have to show up for North Carolina. We have to show up for Black and brown people across this nation. And then when we show up, we cannot stop there. When we show up, we have to take that same 5 that we impacted, and we need to call a gathering. And we need to continue conversation about the work that needs to be done after we go to the poll. Yes. If we don't continue the work after we go to the poll, what we did at the polls was null and void. Because then we don't hold people accountable. We don't watch the policies, the bills that are being implemented. And then again, they're dragging us along, right? We need to start having more gatherings. When those freshmen came together in that room, and then they also had some Bennett Bells at the table having conversations with them. That was a gathering. And look at what happened. We are here 64 years later because of an initial gathering. If we continue the gatherings, 64 more years from here, I suspect we'd be in a better place. I hope, because we talked about hopelessness. I hope that we will be in a better place. And Kennedy, when we're in the gathering, we need to know our strengths. We need to know what we bring to the table, the knowledge, the expertise, the talents we bring to the table. Because if there's movement that needs to happen, each one of us are going to have to make a move, right? And then, Dr. Thomas, you said when we're in that space, we can't be afraid to have real dialogue, genuine, raw dialogue about what's going on and how we can strategize that change. I challenge everyone in here, vote, create your gathering, create change. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Let me thank you for joining us this morning for the 64th anniversary of the sit-in movement by the A&T Four. First and foremost, let's give our panelists another round of applause, please. Great food for thought, opportunities to have great conversation, and the like as well. I also want to thank our students for the incredible job they continue to do in planning this event with our staff, and their presence here today as well. I want all of our students and our visitors as students who will stand up. Let us give you a round of applause. It is through you we will continue our work. All of our students, please stand where you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know about some of you, but I get challenged every day by one or more of these incredibly bright students simply walking across campus, in the student center, wherever it might be. And I always walk away with a great sense of pride and confidence that our future is in great hands because of the incredible energy and effort of these remarkable young people we have the privilege of serving here on our campus. We have, most if not all of us, had the great privilege of engaging in some point in time in our recent past at one of the most iconic structures on this campus. And sometimes we do so without realizing what it really, really means to us. And I have the great privilege today to recognize the creator of this incredible monument we refer to as the February 1 Monument. Professor James Barnhill put incredible efforts into creating this magnificent piece. The monument stands as a powerful symbol, a very powerful symbol of courage, resilience, and the pivotal role of the 4 brave A&T freshmen in the civil rights movement. The larger-than-life portrayal of Jabril Kazan, Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, and David Richmond vividly captures the historic sit-in at Woolworth in 1960. The statue's location in front of A&T's Dudley Memorial Building further emphasizes its significance within the university's history. The monument depicts the exceptional work of the 4 young men walking out of Woolworth's after their protest. It's not only a powerful visual representation, but a testament to the transformative impact of their actions. This act of peaceful protest became a catalyst for similar sit-ins across the nation, marking a crucial moment in this fight for civil rights. It also served as an inspiration for further organizing among Black youth. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, for instance, was created weeks later as a part of a mass gathering of young activists at Shaw University. The February 1 monument, weighing over 6,000 pounds and standing a 15-foot structure in the air, commands our attention as we look up at it and serves as a distinct landmark on A&T's campus. The bronze figures, dressed in the clothing worn during the sit-in, authentically captures the spirit of that historic day. The inclusion of a summary of the sit-in on the monument ensures that the story is not only preserved, but will be forever shared for generations to come. The February 1 monument serves as a compelling attraction, drawing visitors from near and far to our campus and garnering their attention with its significance and presence. It is the single most photographed location on this campus. When departing from our campus for away games, the A&T football team stops at every away game at the February 1 monument, and with each team member passing by in a single file to touch the statue's foundation. It inspires them, it enables them to go forward and compete to the best of their abilities in representing this remarkable institution. Professor James Barnhill, a retired arts professor at North Carolina A&T, and the visionary creator of this remarkable monument, deserves heartfelt appreciation for his success in channeling the spirit of the 4 in this beautiful depiction. As an American artist and sculptor with a legacy spanning over 3 decades, Professor Barnhill has contributed significantly to the preservation of historical narratives from his commissioned statues and public monuments, of which February 1 is perhaps one of the most prominently recognized. In recognition of Professor Barnhill's impactful artistry, it is fitting to express gratitude for bringing this monumental piece to A&T's campus. So I'd like to now have you turn your attention to the screen for the playing of a short video where Professor Barnhill shares his experiences in creating this significant edifice.
Americans across the country and throughout the world recall that historic moment on February 1st, 1960, when 4 African-American students from North Carolina A&T State University stood up to racial injustice by demanding that they be served at the all-white Woolworth lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. The A&T Four will soon take another stand, this time a permanent stance in bronze symbolizing one of the most pivotal civil rights achievements in history.
I was aware of the photograph of the 4 young men leaving Woolworth's, where they're walking shoulder to shoulder facing the photographer. I'd been in and out of the development office and I'd seen it. And I knew that the image that everybody has is these 4 guys sitting at a counter. But I knew that that would be too static for a piece of sculpture. And the photograph came immediately to mind. And I didn't think about it much. That was what it needed to be. You build this thing, it's like a plumbing system, a big heavy pipe coming up, then it tapers down, goes into the back, and then you've got sort of a skeletal figure underneath each man. The contract had actually called for 6 to 7 foot figures, and I was already up to 10. And then I thought, you know, this is a big thing. In the application of the clay, with this paddle, you know, pounding it on, well, it would leave marks. And then I had another tool. There's a loop tool that had teeth in it, kind of a rake. Well, in fact, it's called a rake. And I would shape this using the rake, shape the forms. And Rather than smooth it all down to get this pristine surface, I left the texture, which has sort of a raw, energetic feeling about it, which in my mind lends itself very well to what's going on here. It was kind of a raw, energetic moment, you know. It wasn't neat and tidy. The next step was to go ahead and start with the mold making process. I take that load of molds, load them up in the back of the pickup truck, and then it's off to the foundry in Seagrove. The next step is the bronze is heated in the crucible to about 2100 degrees, maybe a little more, pulled out of the furnace, and then poured out of the crucible into that cup. The molten bronze goes down the tubes and then fills that void that we want cast. And now you've got the section cast in bronze, which once was clay, that one section that I made the mold of. And then that section is welded together in this three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle that will become David Richmond, for example.
The February 1 monument will serve to remind all mankind of the extraordinary contributions of the A&T Four.
So, Professor Barnhill, if you could join me. I'll come to you. I'll come to you. This iconic piece represents a key symbol of the A&T Four, of your creation. And we share this iconic piece with our most distinguished guests who come to visit our university, from presidents of the United States and every commencement speaker. We share this iconic piece as a symbol of your masterful work. So we thank you for helping to create for all of us a great memory of the occurrence of February 1, 1960, of the A&T Four. We present you a symbol as well. And on the back it reads, Professor James Barnhill, in recognition and appreciation of your contribution to North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We present this plaque as well, and it reads, in recognition and appreciation for the iconic February 1 monument celebrating the A&T Four. Distinguished Body of Work Award, James Barnhill, MFA. Thank you. Thank you. Let's give him another round of applause, please. And the next time you get an opportunity to stand before that 15-foot structure, you'll remember the mastery of Professor Barnhill in his creation of that masterpiece. Just incredible. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to present one of North Carolina A&T State University's highest honors, the Human Rights Medal, The Human Rights Medal is awarded annually to recognize individuals who strive to correct social injustice and who contribute to the betterment of the world. The award recognizes individuals whose courageous actions reflect the extraordinary actions of the A&T Four. It is, by far, one of the most highest and most significant honors that we confer here at the university. There are a number of individuals in our community who are with us today who are recipients of the Human Rights Medal, and I'd love to have them stand where they are and be recognized at this moment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The 2024 Human Rights Medal recipient this year, Ms. Naima Mohammed. Very good. Thank you. Ms. Mohammed has been a community organizer for North Carolina Environmental Justice Network since 2001, leading statewide efforts for environmental and social injustice since 2014. She has served as the network's director, community organizer. Naima has been working in significant ways on two important grants funded by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. In particular, one includes a community health and environmental reawakening project where she collaborated on waste issues from industrial hog operations. She has also been involved in the community health efforts of Industrial Hog Operations Project, serving as a community organizer, environmental justice educator, and participant in quality data analysis, ensuring that all of the outgrowth of hog waste around hog farms throughout North Carolina have not had a significantly imbalanced impact on minority communities. In particular, and in addition, her environmental work, Naima is a founding member of Black Workers for Justice in North Carolina, addressing workers' rights since 1981. She has been married to Saludin Muhammad for 53 years and is dedicated to belief that their work will lead to a better life for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Muhammad is unable to join us today. However, she has been able to join us through a video, and I'd love to turn your attention to the screens.
Good morning to everyone here. My name is Naima Muhammad. I am Senior Advisor of the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. I am coming before you this morning to say thank you. Thank you so very much for the honor and the medal, the Human Rights Medal. I receive it with grace and gratefulness. But I would like to say, first of all, I could never have done the work without the communities that allowed me to come into their home space, their living space, and do the work that I've done. And I truly enjoyed every second of it. If people do not sit around doing nothing because they want to, they don't do anything when they don't know what to do. So how do we get people involved? We get them informed. And that's the best road to getting people actively involved in trying to save themselves. But you have to lead the way because this is where you live. When we get done, I'm going home and you'll be left to live with it. So let's make sure that whatever we stir up, you are able to live with it. So you have to take the lead on what's happening in your community. I am here to assist you, not to save you. And I just want to say thank you to North Carolina A&T. And you all are one of my favorite HBCUs, and that is the honest truth. I just want to say thank you, and thank you to Chancellor Martin for seeing my work as worthy of receiving this medal. And I hold it in the highest regard. And I will be sharing it with everybody I know, making sure they see it. It is a beautiful medal, and I am just grateful and highly honored to receive it. and I am truly sorry that I am unable to be in the room with you. Thank you again for this honor.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Naima Muhammad, 2024 Human Rights Medal recipient. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again to Mr. Barnhill and Ms. Muhammad. A passionate supporter of social justice, civil rights, and equity myself, I sincerely applaud and appreciate your time and efforts. Before we conclude, I invite Jahari Pascal, a senior at the North Carolina A&T Four Middle College, to the podium for event announcements and dismissal.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again to Dr. Kazan, General McNeil, Mr. McCain, and Mr. Richmond. Before we conclude this portion of our program, we have a few announcements. We hope that you all will join us for the laying of the wreath ceremony at the February 1 monument. Shuttle buses are available for anyone who may need traveling assistance. The ceremony will begin at 10 a.m. We will also continue our commemoration with an expanded social justice discussion led by A&T students in Harrison Auditorium beginning at 10:30. Thank you all for coming this morning. Please stay connected and have a great day.